Thanks, darling. And if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat box. Mohammed, I can see your question is there. It will actually require a little bit more of a detailed reply, so I'll try and do that on air as I'm going through. Mohammed, yeah. But the second is how to define the best currency pair for an intraday using CSI. It's, as we've explained many times before, there's no best way, there's no perfect way, there's only the way that suits you. And a lot of traders will focus on one pair or maybe a group of pairs. Other traders will focus indiscriminately on any pair that happens to come along. It will also depend on the time frames that are you going to be a scalping trader? Are you looking for reversal trades? Do you like trading trend? And that all comes down to risks. So there are so many factors. I mean, it's a huge question and it would take me a while to answer it. A lot of it obviously is explained in the program, but I'll try and pick up some of the points as we're going through. I've got the Aussie yen up here. I've got it on top line is 15 second, 3 minute and 10 minute. This is the one that's been tracking up nicely. Obviously with 4 minutes into London. Over on the right hand side, I've got trading view up, just keeping an eye on, I've got the FTSE 100 up. That's absolutely rocketed up. That would have been fantastic trading that early doors. It's gone from 55.80, it's trading up at 57.44 at the moment. So big move there, but that's no great surprise when you track over to the, let's just visit the indices quickly, US sisters. There we go, let's go to this one, there we go. This is what's going on in terms of futures. I mean, this morning is just a perfect example of risk on and risk off. We're risk on this morning. We're seeing the indices, we've got the YM, the NQ and the ES top line on 5 minute. So really nice moves there, and it really does defy the issue that a lot of futures traders have, which is don't trade Globex, only trade when the cash and Globex is running together, which is a load of bunkum, but then there's an awful lot of bunkum talked in this market anyway. So there we go, great trades. And the other nice thing about trading through this sort of time frame on Globex only, which is just electronic, the price action tends to be more measured, more even paced. But volume plies in exactly the same way. You can see we've got rising price, rising volume. Not quite so much over here, a little bit of a pullback on or a slowdown on the YM, but essentially they're all moving the same direction. We've got trend monitor there running in blue. Got some transitional changes going on in terms of the daily. Some key levels building, particularly on, this is the daily for the ES, which is the S&P 500. We have had the volume point of control building here, a lot of volume building in this region. And we also had a decent level of support building here. We had resistance at this level, which has gone through another minor resistance here. If we carry on up here, we've got low volume here. So all things being equal, we'd expect that to move through there pretty swiftly, provided there are no more aftershocks with regard to the virus. Let's go back onto the time frames. Where are we? Currency indices, currency array, currency charts. There we go. This is the Aussie yen. No great flicker at the moment in terms of move through London. That's down on 15, that's where we were. Nice up candle, nice solid volume under that. Little bit of a pullback there, but volume fell away. But now we're into London here at 8 o'clock. The nice thing with NinjaTrader, I've said many times before, is it does print the actual timestamp. So we're at 8:07 here UK time. This was 8 o'clock, and we're just moving into the session. Trend monitor nice and blue across the time horizons, just picking up on the multiple time frames. Multiple time frames is not just about the charts themselves, it's about the indicators as well. Speaking of which, let's hop on to the currency strength in multiples. There we go. That's what we're seeing right now. This heavy selling of the yen, you can see it here on 15, over on 10, over on 5, it's moving heavily into oversold. It's been flip-flopping around here on 3, but the Aussie is still holding up. The blue line here, the grey is the New Zealand dollar, and we've got the Canadian. They're kind of splitting a little bit apart. The Canadian is already starting to just pull that out of the way. Starting to sell off a little bit, but the Aussie is still strong and maintaining the position up here. We've also got some pretty strong selling in terms of the dollar. Head over onto the array. There we go. I've got the Aussie isolated out here. This is 3 minute, this is 5 minute, over onto the 10 minute. I've isolated out the Aussie because I want to see what's going on in terms of Aussie buying across the complex. Is it universal? Yes, it is. Where are the strongest trends? Well, you can see them here. The Aussie yen is the strongest. It's getting up into a potentially overbought situation because this is flashing on and off in a brighter color, as you can see here. When it goes to a solid line, it's confirming that. So it's getting up to that sort of state. But then it's down to the chart. You've got to analyze it on the chart. Is it something you want to trade? And to pick up on Mohammed's point, if you're a reversal trader, that might be an opportunity for you. It really depends, but you may not be comfortable with trading reversals because it comes at a higher risk. So you'll be looking for that reversal to take effect and then maybe jump on the trend once it gets underway. But certainly from a visual, we can see the Aussie yen here is the strongest, Aussie yen strongest on 5. Over on 10, it's actually the Aussie dollar, but the principle is the same. Just move that out of the way, sorry about that. Let's just isolate, in fact, let's isolate out the yen on this one. Just see where we're going in terms of the yen. And obviously with the yen as the counter currency, what we want to see is the inverse of what we're looking at in terms of the Aussie. In other words, we want to see selling of the yen universally. So we want to see all these pairs up here, which pretty much they are, except for the dollar yen. The dollar yen trades in a completely different way. It doesn't trade in the same way as you would expect. Again, it's all explained in the program. I'm not going to go into it now. But the dollar yen is not a pair that you can look at in isolation in terms of either risk, because what you're looking at here is essentially, amongst other things, you've got two risk currencies balancing one another. Excuse me, I'm just going to switch off for a minute. Sorry about that. So you cannot look at the dollar yen in the same context, although obviously it will give you a flavor of what is going on, and these are the ones you really need to focus on in terms of a risk purely perspective, in terms of whether we're seeing buying or selling of the yen. The steepness of the line gives you an instant heads up on the strength of trend, and obviously what we want to see for perfect full house is to see all these stacked up at the top, these two stacked at the bottom, and the same over here in terms of this is isolated out on the yen. So we want to see all the yen pairs climbing up at the top here, and the same here. Just want to go to the heat map for a moment to pick up on something else. There we go. For those of you here, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I highlighted the fact that on the currency heat map, we had a lot of the yen pairs stacked up at the bottom. And I suggested at the time, I said, it's if you're a longer term trader, if perhaps you don't have the luxury as we do of sitting in front of a chart all day long, excuse me for a moment again. Sorry, you don't want to hear me coughing all over the microphone. These were all pretty much stacked up at the bottom here. Now what we're seeing is, because we are starting to see risk on returning, and I said at the time that the beauty of the heat map is that it gives you two visuals for different things. On the one hand, it gives you an intraday perspective from the 1 minute, this is on Ninja, right the way through to the monthly. And in that context, you can look at this from an intraday scalping perspective. You can see the changes in sentiment as they ripple through across the time horizons. And it's a very clear visual on what is going on. As the numbers increase here, we're seeing more bullish sentiment arrive for those particular pairs. So in the context of the matrix, what you're seeing here is a visual on this whole, and imagine having all these charts up at once. It's almost an impossible task. So it's just a really compact version of what is going on across all these time frames. So that's from an intraday perspective, right from the 1 minute throughout. And then over onto the ranking ladder, what the ranking ladder does is it then weights that sentiment according to the time frame. And just common sense would tell you that a change in sentiment on a 1 minute chart should have less weight than a 5 minute, and so on down to a 10 minute and to an hourly and to a daily. So we've weighted it in that way to give a flavor of overbought and oversold, if you like, on a much slower time frame for the currency pairs themselves. And what that gives you then as a slower, longer term trader, perhaps you don't have the luxury, as I say, sitting in front of a screen all day long. This gives you the opportunity to pick up trades that are going to begin a move in perhaps a daily, perhaps over the week. So it's a much slower perspective. And as I said, they were all stacked up down at the bottom. They're now starting to lift off here. You can see that change in sentiment rippling through. You've got green building here. You've got green building on these as well. Same on the Swiss franc, same on the pound yen. The only one that's a little bit out of kilter, if you like, at the moment is the dollar yen. You can see here we've got some bearish sentiment on the hour, bearish on the very fast time frames, and pretty bearish over here. But what will happen ultimately, if these are all going to move up the top here, eventually all these slower time frames down here will also start to transition through to green. Got an awful long way to go on the weeklies, but this is starting to appear on the dailies. So it's just giving you a sense of what is going on in the slower time horizons and opportunities if you're a slower term trader. Go back on to, let's go to the currency indices. Just move that out of the way again. These are the actual currency indices themselves. This is the yen at the top. We've got the dollar here at the top. Down at the bottom, we've got the euro and we've got the pound here. You can see we've got very strong selling in the dollar. This is the 15-minute CSI. That's been confirmed over here, this red line. Heavy selling of the dollar, and it's confirmed on the index itself here too. So you have two visuals in one in terms of what is going on the dollar. Over here, really nice image of the yen. Again, this magenta line selling off very, very strongly. Really spoilt for choice. You can see the Aussie and the New Zealand yen still climbing strongly. We're now starting to see the impact of London. This is 8 o'clock here, so we're 8:15 now, so we're 15 minutes in. Starting to see some strong buying of the euro. We're starting to see strong buying of the pound as well over here. And you can see it developing over here, although it's a little bit spiky at the moment. And the only word of caution I would urge you on the British pound, given that what is going on with our Prime Minister right now, who has been admitted to ICU, that may well impact. Obviously, we're hoping for good news, and it's not going to impact as strongly if there is any more negative news. But again, it gives an indication of why you have to be aware of local news. Local news will impact a currency. It will impact it quite strongly, and it may well drive it against the matrix of what is going on in terms of globally for that particular currency, because it's being driven by a particular news event that is pertinent to that particular country. You can see it here is now developing pretty strongly. The euro is rising. It's not rising that strongly, but we've seen a decent rally in the euro. So again, it just gives you a visual heads up in terms of the indices. These are on NinjaTrader, also available on Inti4 and TradingView. Just gives you an instant heads up of what is going on. Let's go back onto the chart, see where that Aussie yen is at the moment. There we go. Okay, still tracking up nicely. Just pop open the 3 minutes, see where we're going. Okay, we've got nice volume here. It's all green. We've got nice rising volume moving through the session crossover. So there's no traps at the moment on this one, which is nice to see. Doesn't always happen, but I'd say 98 times in 100 it will. You'll see volatility come in. You'll see strong reversals, change in trend, trap moves develop, and then the trend continues or reverses. But inevitably you will see it. Not on this occasion, which is nice. So this is nice, steady trading. You can see the trend monitor here. We have this little bit of congestion, but the trend monitor didn't flicker. It just said, yep, okay, I can see that coming. But as far as I'm concerned, the trend is still holding good. So it's helping to keep you in through that little phase of price action where we were talking about, what, 5, 6, 7 pips, something like that, where you're wondering if this is going to continue. Am I going to see the reversal develop? And then you're looking at the volume here, and you're looking at low volume. So once you start to see that appear, you think, okay, well, that's not so bad. I've seen some selling here. Yes, the market reacted, but then I'm not seeing a follow through in that selling pressure. Little bit of weakness coming. That might have been a bit of cause concern. We're trying to rally, but it looks a little bit weak. Then we start to see these guys develop, and we know we're off to the races again, and on up we go, building pips. We're moving up into low volume regions here. Low volume node coming ahead. So that's all well and good, and the market's going to move through that pretty swiftly. on up to this is on the 10-minute. I've got the volume off here because I've got so much data coming in, but that will close off and hopefully build a nice volume bar under that one too. So this is all nice, even pace stuff. It's all aligned. We know why it's happening. Just go back onto the indices. I'll just go onto the Renkos as well, which are nice. Let's go down here. There we go. What we're seeing, I'm just keeping an eye out here on seeing what's happening on the VIX. VIX is 44.9 at the moment. FTSE is just flattening off a little bit. It's had a big rally. It's just having a bit of a pause point. But essentially, sentiment remains good. Risk on is solid across the markets, across the pond, globally. This is what's happening. Just go on to the multiple Renkos, which applies whether you're using time frame charts or indicators or whatever it is. The same principle applies. Just reload that one there. Oh, well, that's not loading, but there we go. This is the Renko in multiple time frames. So at the bottom here, I've got 15-second. There we go. It's loaded now. 30-second and 1 minute, and that reflects how I've set the Renko at the top here. So this Renko is running on a 15-second. This one's running on 30. This one's running on a minute. It's a perfect combination. It's a perfect way to trade where you've got the combination of the blend of a non-time-based chart, which is the Renko, with your time-based chart. It smooths everything out. Use it in conjunction with the trend dots and the trend monitor. It's just a fabulous way to trade. And the other point about it is this: the Renko optimizer delivers the optimal setting for each of these time horizons. On the 15-second right now, we're running at 1.5, in other words, pip and a half. On the 30-second, we're running at 2.2 pips, and on the 1 minute, we're running at 3.2. So you effectively choose your time window, your 3 or 4, you may use 2, 3, 4, however many you wish, which gives you an array view across that particular horizon. What it also does, the slower the time frame, then the larger will be the bricks, the equivalent brick size, and it does it all automatically. All you do is just go in here, select whatever time frame you want, and it will deliver that automatically and start building your bricks straight away. So you're trading at the optimal setting. You're not guessing. You can, of course, this indicator also has the option to set it manually if you wish to trade a particular fixed brick size, but the optimal size is delivered for you all the time. All you need to do is check it occasionally. And rough rule of thumb, if you're trading anywhere on the very fast time frames, where for here, for example, where we're down, sub 1 minute, maybe 1 minute up to 5 minutes, you'd be checking them every sort of 5-10 minutes or so. As you move into the slower time frames, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you don't need to check them so regularly. And the slower the time frame, the larger will be the brick size. It's very simple. As you can see here, we've gone 1.5, 2.2, 3.2, and that pretty much reflects it. So if we went up to 5 minutes, it might be running at, I don't know, 8, 9 pips, maybe something like that. It's just a great way to do it. The trend dots work brilliantly with it. You've got the trend monitor below. And what you're waiting for a full-blown reversal, because the trend dots work very close to the price action, as you can see, they've already transitioned here. We've gone from blue, we've rolled, now we're into red. But the trend monitor is still holding blue. It's still holding blue, and it's still holding blue. And what the ideal combination for a full-blown reversal is to see a change in trend dot color, which is then confirmed with the trend monitor. And if it isn't confirmed with the trend monitor, then it's just simply a minor pullback. And as I say, using it in combination with the time frame charts, it just smooths out all that noise and price action. It gives you entries, helps to keep you in, and also gives you exit as well. And of course, you can apply the other indicators as well. I've got the accumulation distribution up there running on the Renko too. Just seeing that little pullback there on the Renkos. We're just seeing it here. Just pop that up. There we go. Oops, sorry, it's disappeared. Where's that gone? Lost that one. There we are. That's back again. Pop that up full size. There we go. So we had the volume building here, which was nice. But what's interesting is we had higher volume on this candle, but actually the spread of the candle was pretty much the same. So there's a little bit of weakness starting to appear, and it's purely because of this particular candle. The volume is higher. The spread of the candle is more or less the same as the previous one, not exactly the same shape. Little bit of a wick to the upper body, but it just gives you a heads up as to what to expect next. Expect some weakness, anticipate some weakness. It's not going to frighten the life out of you. because if this had been in agreement, and this is our benchmark candle, the previous one, there may be one much further back, but in this case, I'm just going to take this one as a quick example, then what we should have seen with this price action, all things being equal, certainly probably a little bit up here, maybe even higher because the volume is higher. It isn't. So we're seeing a little bit of selling coming in here. No great surprise. We've had a nice rally. Traders be banking their profits now, and you know, taking that off the table, just taking a pause point. And that's how to read the chart, and that's the power of volume. It just gives you that anticipatory management of your emotion, that when something happens, you're not frightened and you don't make a decision based on emotion. You make a decision based on analysis, on fact, on logic, on common sense, not on emotion. And that's the power of volume price analysis and what it does for you, whether you're trading forex, whether you're trading indices, futures, stocks, cash markets, whatever it may be, doesn't matter. It applies universally. Can I pass back to you, darling? Just keeping an eye on what's going on in the FTSE. It's sort of flip-flopping around. I'll just pull this over for you just before I pass back to Anna. There we go. That's what's happening in terms of the VIX on the left. Got that on 1, and the FTSE 100 on the right.